The desert stretched as far as the eye could see. Dry winds carried the taste of sand and silence. The ruins of a forgotten city lay half-buried under dust, broken walls standing like tired bones. No life, no voices, only the endless whisper of the wind. A lone human walked through the wasteland. His boots crunched softly on the cracked ground. His clothes were torn, his face rough from the sun. He carried no weapon, only a small pack of food and water. To him, survival was the only purpose. One more day alive in a galaxy that had long forgotten his kind. He had once been a soldier, but wars ended and armies scattered. Now he was just a man wandering ruins of worlds, searching for scraps, searching for meaning. His name was Eric, though few remembered it, and he spoke it rarely. Even he sometimes wondered if it still belonged to him. As he crossed the ruins, something caught his eye, a glint under the dust, small, almost hidden. He bent down and brushed the sand away with his calloused hand. At first, he thought it was junk, maybe broken metal from an old machine. But the shape was wrong. The edge curved like a blade, the hilt buried deep in the dirt. Eric dug it free, pulling until the weight of the object came loose. It was a sword, old and rusted. The metal was dull, covered with scars of time. Its grip was wrapped in torn leather, and the blade seemed useless. No man in this age carried swords, and this one looked ready to break. He almost laughed at the foolishness of it. But then a sound stirred inside his mind, soft, like a whisper carried on the wind. "Welcome back, Your Majesty." Eric froze. His heart pounded against his ribs. He looked around quickly, but no one was there. The ruins were silent. Only the sword lay heavy in his hand, yet the words had been clear. He dropped the weapon at once, letting it fall back into the sand. His breath quickened, his palms sweated. "I'm losing my mind," he muttered. His voice sounded too small in the empty desert. Still, curiosity pulled him. He picked it up again. The weight felt different this time. Not just metal, but something alive. The whisper returned, softer but certain. "You were always the king, waiting to return." Eric shook his head. "No, I'm nothing. I'm no king," he whispered back as if answering a ghost. But the sword pulsed faintly in his grip, as though it disagreed. Memories flickered in his mind. Shadows of battles, crowds cheering, banners burning against the stars. None of them belonged to him. Yet they felt real. His body trembled as images filled him. A throne of stone, warriors kneeling, blood on a battlefield. And at the center, a sword like this one, shining bright. He stumbled backward, his legs weakened, his breath uneven. The ruins around him seemed to change. For a moment, the broken city looked whole again. Towers standing tall, soldiers marching, a kingdom alive with power. Then it vanished, leaving only sand and silence. Eric gritted his teeth. "This isn't real," he said, yet the sword hummed gently, as if mocking his doubt. He wanted to throw it away, to bury it where he had found it, but some force held him. A strange heat spread through his arm, into his chest, like fire waking inside him. The weight of the blade was no longer heavy. It felt natural, as if his hand was made to hold it. The wind grew stronger, swirling dust into the air. The ruins groaned under the push of the storm. Eric stood still, clutching the blade, and for the first time in years, he felt something he thought he had lost: purpose. He whispered to himself, "If this is madness, then let it guide me." His voice trembled, but his grip on the sword tightened. From the shadows of the ruins, unseen eyes watched, alien scouts hidden in the dust, their sensors locked on the sword's faint energy. They whispered among themselves. "The prophecy begins," one said. "The king of men has touched the blade again." Eric could not hear them, but the wind carried a warning. His life would no longer be the same. He was not just a wanderer anymore. The desert had given him back something ancient, something dangerous. And as he walked deeper into the ruins, the whisper in his mind grew louder. "Your throne awaits." The night came slowly over the ruins. The broken stones glowed faintly under the silver light of two moons. Eric sat near the remains of an old wall, the rusted sword lying across his knees. He could not bring himself to let it go, not after what he had heard. The whisper had not stopped. It was not constant, but it came in moments, gentle, patient, always the same voice. It spoke to him as if it had waited for him for ages. "You are the king of men," it said. "You were never gone, only hidden." Eric tried to ignore it. He told himself it was madness, maybe the heat, maybe hunger playing tricks. Yet deep inside, he felt something strange. Whenever the blade rested in his hand, the air around him seemed heavier, and the ground almost hummed with life. He looked at the blade closely. Rust covered most of it, cracks lined its edge. It looked ready to fall apart, but when moonlight touched it, a faint glow ran along its surface like veins of fire tried to wake. It was not just metal, it was something far older, something alive. Eric muttered under his breath, "Why me?" His voice cracked. He was no leader, no king. He was just a man who had lost everything. His army, his home, his people scattered across the stars. But the sword's whisper did not agree. "You are the return. You are the one we waited for." He closed his eyes, and visions came again. He saw soldiers standing at his side, humans in armor holding banners. He saw alien armies breaking, worlds burning. The visions were sharp, like memories, yet they were not his. He felt both fear and fire in his chest. Suddenly, a noise cut through the night. A low metallic hiss echoed between the broken towers. Eric stood at once, gripping the sword tightly. Shapes moved in the shadows, red eyes blinking in the dark. The whisper in the blade grew louder. "Test them. Show them who you are." Figures emerged, creatures of bone and steel, their limbs sharp, their bodies twisted like machines fused with corpses. They walked in silence, their claws scraping the ground. There were 5 of them, their heads tilting unnaturally as they fixed their gaze on Eric. His throat tightened. He had no armor, no training for years. He should run. But when he raised the sword, something inside him awoke. His stance shifted, his breath slowed, his hands moved as if they remembered what his mind had forgotten. The first creature lunged, fast claws aimed for his chest. Eric swung without thought. The blade cut through metal and bone. Sparks burst. The creature fell in two. Eric's eyes widened. He had not felt this strong in years. He had not fought like this ever. The others attacked together. Eric spun, his movements too perfect to be chance. Each strike landed with deadly precision. He felt the sword guiding him, as though invisible hands pulled his arms. Every block, every step, every cut. It all felt remembered, not learned. When the last monster fell, silence returned. Eric stood over the ruins, chest heaving, sweat dripping down his face. The sword glowed faintly now, alive in his hand. The whisper filled his mind once more, but it was stronger. One world bows, many more wait. Eric dropped to his knees, shaking. The corpses of the creatures twitched before falling still. He could not understand what had happened. He was no king, no hero, yet he had fought like one. He pressed his hand against the blade, whispering, "What are you?" The answer came, not in words, but in feeling, images of ancient battles, of men and women raising this sword high, leading armies, crushing empires. The sword was not just a weapon. It was a crown, a voice, a memory of kings long gone. Far above, in the cold sky, alien ships circled quietly. Their sensors had picked up the energy of the blade. On one ship, warlords gathered, staring at the readings with fear. It has awakened. One of them hissed, "The human king has touched it again." Another slammed his fist against the table. "This cannot be. He was destroyed ages ago." But the oldest among them, with scarred skin and silver eyes, shook his head. "Prophecies do not die," he said. "When the king returns, the stars will burn. We must kill him before the humans gather." Down below, Eric stared into the sky without knowing why. His chest tightened, as if danger was already on its way. The whisper in the sword softened, almost like comfort. "You are not alone. Your people will hear you. They will come." Eric closed his eyes, fear battling with hope. He was just a wanderer yesterday, a broken man. Now he stood at the edge of something greater, something terrifying. The sword had chosen him, and whether he believed or not, the galaxy had already started to believe. He rose slowly, tightening his grip on the blade. The ruins around him no longer felt empty. They felt like a throne room waiting to rise again. And the voice, steady and calm, whispered its promise into his mind. The king of men has returned. The ruins were quiet after the battle, but the silence did not bring peace. Eric stood among the broken bodies of the bone and steel creatures, his chest rising and falling. The sword in his hand glowed faintly, almost like it was breathing with him. He had fought like a man who had trained all his life. Yet he knew the truth. He had not touched a weapon in years. His skills were gone, or so he thought. But when the creatures attacked, something greater had moved through him. The blade had guided him, shaping his every strike. Eric sat on a cracked stone pillar, staring at the weapon. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of what he felt. He muttered softly, "This isn't me, this can't be me." But the whisper came again, steady and unshaken. "You are more than you believe. You are the king, and the sword remembers." The words unsettled him. He wanted to deny them, to throw the weapon away and walk into the desert. But part of him couldn't. It wasn't just curiosity. It was something deeper, a thread pulling him forward, a bond he didn't choose. The night dragged on, but Eric did not sleep. His mind burned with questions. Each time he closed his eyes, visions appeared. Armies of humans marching, alien empires crumbling, banners falling into the dust, and always the same image, him, standing tall, sword blazing in his grip. By morning, the whispers had grown stronger. They no longer waited for him to listen. They pushed. "The time of hiding is over," they said. "Rise, for your people need you." Eric clenched his jaw. "There are no people left," he muttered, but the sword pulsed in answer, and a rush of heat filled his chest. Memories. No, not his own, flooded him. He saw scattered humans across distant worlds, enslaved, broken, forgotten. He saw their suffering, and he felt their hope for something they didn't even know was coming. Before he could argue with the voice again, the ground shook, dust fell from the ruins around him, and the distant sound of engines roared through the desert. Eric climbed to higher ground, heart pounding. On the horizon, dark shapes approached, not beasts this time, but machines. 3 alien walkers, towering machines on long steel legs, moved through the ruins like predators. Their weapons glowed red, their armored shells marked with the crest of the Coalition, the empire that had crushed humanity long ago. Eric gripped the sword tighter. Fear knotted in his stomach. He had survived the creatures, but these were different. They carried cannons, shields, weapons meant to destroy armies. He was only one man, yet the whisper inside him did not flinch. "This is your test, King. Rise or fall. Your path begins here." The walkers spread out, circling him. Their speakers crackled, a metallic voice echoing. "Human anomaly detected, relic identified, eliminate target." Eric's heart thundered. He wanted to run, but his legs refused. Something stronger anchored him to the ground. His fingers tightened around the sword. The whisper roared in his head. "No longer gentle. Fight, and the world will remember." The first walker fired. A blast of red energy scorched the ground where he had stood. Eric leaped aside, faster than he thought possible. The sword seemed to pull him into motion, guiding his body like a shadow. He rolled, sprang up, and swung. To his shock, the blade met the walker's leg, and instead of shattering, it cut clean through the steel. Sparks erupted. The machine toppled with a thunderous crash. The other 2 advanced, firing in bursts. Eric darted between the ruins, his movements impossibly sharp. The sword glowed brighter now, as if feeding from the danger. Each strike he made turned impossible into real, cutting metal, blocking energy, tearing through weapons designed to end wars. When the last walker fell, silence returned once more. The ruins smoked. Fire lit the horizon. Eric stood in the center, his chest heaving. The sword shone like a star, and the whisper filled him with triumph. "You see now, you are not broken. You are chosen." Eric fell to his knees, gripping the blade. His body shook. His mind battled against what had just happened. He whispered, almost begging, "Why me? I didn't ask for this." The sword's reply was calm, but final. "Because only a king does not choose his crown. The crown chooses him." Far above, in the orbiting alien ships, the warlords stared at the destruction. Fear spread through them. One human destroyed an entire squadron. One hissed, "He wields the relic." Another growled, but the eldest among them spoke with cold certainty, "This is only the first test. If we do not stop him now, the stars will bow to him again." Eric raised his head to the sky, sweat and blood dripping from his brow. He didn't know if he was a king, or just a man with a cursed weapon, but he knew one thing. This was only the beginning. And as the ruins smoldered, the whisper in the blade echoed like thunder in his soul. One world bows, many more wait. Far above the ruined city, alien warships circled like vultures in the night sky. Their scanners locked on the desert where Eric stood among the wreckage of fallen machines, on the command deck of the largest ship. Warlords of the Coalition gathered. Their faces were carved with fear, though they tried to hide it behind anger. The eldest among them, a tall being with silver scars across his face, spoke first. "The relic has awakened." His voice was heavy. "The King of Men has returned." The words spread through the chamber like poison. Several warlords hissed in disbelief. Others struck the table in rage. "He is only one man," snarled a creature with 4 arms and burning yellow eyes. "Send more machines. Send a fleet. He will be crushed like the rest of his kind." But the scarred one shook his head slowly. "You do not understand. This is not about one man. This is about memory. The humans remember, even when scattered, even when broken. If they hear the relic has returned, they will gather." A silence fell, thick and uneasy. The Coalition had ruled for centuries. They had broken humanity, enslaved them, scattered them across countless worlds. But deep inside, every warlord in that room knew the old prophecy. It whispered through history. When the king returns, the stars will burn. On the surface, Eric walked through the ruins, the sword heavy in his hand. He felt eyes on him, though he saw no one. The whispers inside the blade had grown louder. Not just words now, but feelings, strength, anger, hope. He tried to resist, but the pull was stronger than his doubt. As he moved, the ruins seemed to respond. He touched a cracked wall, and for a heartbeat, the stone looked whole again, banners fluttering in the wind, voices cheering. Then it faded, leaving only dust. He closed his eyes, breath shaking. The sword was not just speaking. It was showing him the past, reminding him of what had been lost. That night, a small fire burned in the ruins as Eric sat alone. The sword rested across his knees. His eyes were fixed on the flames, but his mind wandered. He remembered faces of people he once fought beside, comrades now gone, scattered or enslaved. He wondered if they were alive somewhere, if they would even remember him. The whisper answered as if hearing his thoughts. "They will remember. They will come. You are the flame they waited for." Eric clenched his teeth. "I am no king," he muttered. His voice broke with anger. "I am just a man who survived." The sword pulsed gently, warm against his hand. Even a man who survives can be a king. Suddenly, shadows stirred beyond the firelight. Eric stood at once, gripping the blade. From the darkness, 3 figures stepped forward. They were not aliens. They were human. Their clothes ragged, their faces hollow with hunger. Their eyes widened as they saw the glowing sword in his hand. One of them whispered in awe, "The prophecy." Another felt his knees, trembling. "The king has returned." Eric froze, his stomach twisted. "No," he said sharply. "I am not your king." But they did not listen. Their faces shone with desperate hope, hope that pierced deeper than any blade. The humans knelt before him, their voices shaking as they spoke. "We dreamed of the sword. We saw it shining. It called us here." Eric's chest tightened. He wanted to tell them they were wrong, that he was no savior. Yet when he looked into their eyes, he saw the truth. They needed someone. They needed hope, and the sword in his hand had already chosen him. Far above, the warlords of the Coalition watched the scene unfold through hidden drones. Their unease deepened. "It has begun," the scarred one whispered. "The humans are gathering. The fire is spreading." Another slammed his fist on the table. "We must destroy him before the others awaken, before his voice reaches across the stars." On the ground, Eric turned away from the kneeling survivors, his voice low, his heart heavy. "Do not follow me." But the whisper inside the blade contradicted him, roaring like thunder. "They will follow. They are yours. The world remembers." Eric gritted his teeth, lifting the sword toward the stars. He hated the weight it carried, but a fire was already burning in his chest, a fire he could not put out. And above, in the halls of power, the most feared warlords in the galaxy trembled. Not because they doubted their armies, but because for the first time in centuries, they felt something far more dangerous than war. They felt fear. The desert dawn painted the ruins in red and gold. Eric stood at the edge of the broken city, the sword resting in his hand. Behind him, the three humans he had met the night before followed silently. Their faces carried hunger and exhaustion, but also something more dangerous: hope. Eric did not want it. He did not ask for it, yet it clung to him like a shadow. The sword hummed faintly, its whisper steady and clear. "They come because of you. They will gather. They will rise." He shook his head. "I am not a leader," he muttered, his voice cracked. "I am not a king." But the words sounded weak even to his own ears. The humans looked at him with reverence, their eyes fixed not on his scars or weariness, but on the sword glowing faintly in the morning light. News of the relic spread faster than he could imagine. The three survivors carried stories to others hiding in the wastelands. Some came in fear, others in disbelief. But when they saw the blade, when they felt its strange pull, their doubt vanished. They whispered to each other, "The prophecy is real. The king has returned." Eric tried to push them away. He told them to leave, to survive on their own. But they refused. They brought food, scraps of technology, pieces of weapons. They followed him through the ruins as if he had always been their leader. And though he hated it, part of him felt something he had not felt in years: belonging. At night, as fires burned, more survivors arrived. Their voices carried across the broken city, filling the ruins with human sound once again. Children laughed for the first time. Old men wept quietly. Warriors sharpened blades and swore loyalty. The ruins were no longer silent. They were alive. The sword glowed brighter with every new arrival. Eric felt its warmth in his chest, not as a burden, but as a heartbeat echoing with theirs. He realized something. The blade was not commanding him anymore. It was guiding, not forcing. Its whispers were softer, like a companion instead of a master. But far away, in the depths of space, the coalition felt the shift. Reports spread of human groups leaving hiding places, gathering in secret. Ships intercepted strange signals, songs, old war chants, voices calling out across the void. For the first time in centuries, humans were uniting. On a dark throne world, a warlord slammed his fist into the table. "This must end. The humans are rising again." Another hissed. "The king is nothing but a man. Kill him, and they will scatter." But the scarred elder shook his head, his silver eyes glinting. "You fools! It is not the man they follow. It is the memory, the fire. Kill him, and the fire may burn brighter. We must break them before they believe too deeply." Back on the ruined world, Eric stood before the gathering of survivors. Their numbers had grown to hundreds. Men, women, and children stared at him with expectant eyes. He wanted to tell them the truth, that he was no king, that he was only a broken soldier. But when he opened his mouth, the words that came were not his own. "We are not forgotten," he said, his voice strong. "We are not broken. The stars believed us weak, but we will rise again." The crowd roared, their voices shaking the ruins. For the first time, Eric did not silence them. He felt the weight of their hopes settle on his shoulders, heavy but steady. He realized then that leadership was not a crown to wear. It was a burden to carry, and he could not abandon them. That night, dreams came stronger than ever. He saw visions of scattered humans across countless worlds, miners breaking chains, slaves whispering in the dark, soldiers raising hidden banners, all of them looking up at the same stars, waiting for a signal. When he woke, the sword pulsed in his hand, its whisper gentle but certain. "They are coming. Your people are rising. The galaxy will remember." Eric stared into the firelight, his jaw tight. He had never wanted to be a king, never wanted to lead. Yet now he saw the truth. He did not need to want it. The people had already chosen. The sword had already chosen. And above, in the cold silence of space, fleets of the coalition prepared for war. Fear had turned to anger. The enemy would strike soon, but for the first time in centuries, humanity was not waiting to hide. They were waiting to rise. The night sky burned with falling fire. The coalition had arrived. Their fleets blotted out the stars, warships descending like dark clouds. Engines roared across the wastelands, shaking the earth. The ruins where Eric and his people had gathered trembled. Dust fell from broken towers as the ground quaked under the approach of machines. Eric stood on the highest wall, the rusted sword glowing faintly in his hand. Below him, hundreds of survivors prepared themselves. Some carried old rifles, others makeshift blades. Many had no weapons at all, only courage. They were not an army. Not yet. They were scattered people with one thing in common: the belief that the king had returned. The whisper in the swords surged like thunder. The shadows of the enemy come, but so do the shadows of your people. Stand, and they will stand. Eric gritted his teeth. Fear coiled in his stomach. He was no general, no ruler. But when he looked at the faces of the men and women below, he saw what they needed. They did not need perfection. They needed resolve. He raised the sword high, its faint glow spilling across the ruins. "They think we are weak," he shouted, his voice echoing through the broken city. "They think we are forgotten. Tonight we show them the truth. Humans do not bow. Not to them. Not to anyone." The crowd erupted. Their voices rolled like thunder across the sands. Children cried out. Warriors pounded their fists against broken stone. For the first time in centuries, the ruins sang with human pride. The coalition struck without mercy. Dropships poured soldiers of steel and flesh into the ruins. Towering walkers marched through the dust. Cannons fired into the night. The ground split with fire and screams. Eric leapt from the wall, the sword pulling him forward. His feet struck the ground with force. And then he was among the enemy. The blade cut through steel as if it were cloth, sparks bursting with each strike. The whisper roared inside him, not with commands, but with rhythm, like a drumbeat guiding him through the storm. The survivors fought beside him, their weapons crude but their spirits fierce. For every human that fell, two more rose. They fought with desperation, not for glory, but for the right to live free. And as they fought, something strange happened. The ruins themselves seemed to awaken. Energy pulsed through broken stone. Shattered walls glowed faintly. It was as if the memory of the city had returned, fighting with them. Eric felt the sword drink this power, its glow growing stronger with every strike. High above, on the coalition command ship, warlords watched the battle unfold. One slammed his claw against the screen. "Impossible, they're only survivors, not soldiers." Another hissed, "Look at the relic. It feeds them. It feeds him." The scarred elder leaned forward, silver eyes narrowing. "This is the war of shadows," he murmured. "It is not one with weapons alone. It is one with belief, and belief is spreading faster than our fire." On the ground, Eric faced one of the massive walkers. Its cannons glowed red, preparing to fire. He charged, every muscle screaming. The blast erupted, but he raised the sword. To his shock, the energy split around him, bending like water against stone. The crowd gasped, their voices rose. The king! The king! With one final swing, he cut through the walker's leg. The machine toppled, crashing into the ruins. The battlefield shook, and the whisper in the sword roared louder than ever. "You are not fighting alone. You are never alone." The tide of battle turned. The humans pushed back with a fury the coalition had not expected. Dropships fell, machines burned, and soldiers fled into the desert night. For the first time in centuries, the coalition retreated before humans. When the smoke cleared, Eric stood among the rubble, his chest heaving. His people gathered around him, bloodied but alive. Their eyes burned with belief. They were no longer just survivors. They were warriors. Eric looked at the glowing sword in his hand, his voice low, almost a whisper. This is only the beginning. Above, in the dark fleet of the coalition, the warlords seethed in silence. They had lost a battle they thought unwinnable, and worse, they had awakened something far more dangerous than a weapon. They had awakened hope. The battlefield still smoked. Fires burned among the ruins. The air reeked of ash and steel. Survivors dragged the wounded to safety, voices low but steady. They had won the night, but everyone knew this was not the end. Eric stood apart from the crowd, the sword still glowing faintly in his hand. He felt the weight of every life around him, not as a burden, but as a bond. The whispers inside the blade were quiet now, not commanding, not urging. They were calm, like a steady heartbeat, waiting for him to decide. For the first time, Eric realized something. The sword was not just an old relic. It was not only a weapon, it was a crown hidden in steel, forged from the memories of kings before him, and now it had chosen him. The people gathered, their faces bloodied, their clothes torn, but their eyes alive with fire. They looked to him as if the galaxy itself had turned. A boy no older than 10 stepped forward, his voice shaking but clear. "You are our king." Eric's chest tightened. He wanted to deny it again, to tell them he was only a man, but the words died in his throat. He looked at the broken city around him, at the humans who had fought and bled beside him, at the sword in his hand that no longer felt like a curse, and he knew the truth. He could not run anymore. He lifted the blade high, its glow spilling across the ruins. His voice rang out, strong, steady, carrying across the silent crowd. "I am no savior. I am no god," he said. "I am only human. But if the galaxy fears us, then let them fear. If they would chain us, then let them break. We will rise, not as slaves, not as shadows, but as men." The ruins shook with the roar of voices. Men and women cried out, fists raised. The sound rolled into the night, rising like thunder. The king had returned. Far above, in the heart of the coalition fleet, the warlords sat in uneasy silence. Their soldiers had failed, their machines destroyed. Their fear had grown into something deeper. Doubt. The scarred elder spoke softly, his silver eyes reflecting the fire of the battlefield below. "It has begun. The prophecy lives. The king of men stands once more." Another warlord snarled, "Then we must end him, no matter the cost." But even as they spoke, they knew the truth. Armies could kill flesh, fleets could burn worlds, but they could not kill belief, and belief was spreading faster than their fire. Across distant stars, scattered humans heard the whispers of victory. Slaves in the mines felt chains grow lighter. Refugees hiding on forgotten moons looked to the sky with hope. Old soldiers buried in exile sharpened their blades once more. One by one, humanity was rising. Eric looked to the stars, his jaw set. He did not feel like a king. He felt like a soldier standing before an endless war, yet the fire in his chest was unshakable. For the first time in his life, he did not walk alone. The whisper in the sword grew into a roar, not of command, but of unity. "The king has returned. The stars will remember." Eric lowered the blade, his people gathering around him. Their faces were tired but determined. They were no longer survivors hiding in the dust. They were a people reborn, bound together by a single truth. The war was far from over. The coalition would strike harder, stronger, fiercer than ever before, but it no longer mattered. Humanity had found its voice and its king.